Fashion is one of the most polluting industries in the world.
Fast fashion clothes are also made in factories where workers are overworked, underpaid, and working in very unsafe conditions.
It starts with a TikTok.
Y'all, the Shein package that I was waiting for arrived, so let's open it. And it's really heavy,
So cheap, she squeals. In the comments, thousands of likes, shares, and links.
Very addictive algorithm, influencers, and young women.
Katy Perry, Lil Nas X, Rita Ora, Storm Reid, and Yara Shahidi have all gotten on the Shein train.
Shein have taken the fast fashion model of producing clothes and put it on steroids.
That $9 dress might have been stitched by a woman in Guangzhou, working 17-hour shifts, earning less than 4 cents per piece. That pile of clothes? Just a fraction of the 92 million tons of fashion waste dumped globally every year. Much of it burned, buried, or shipped off to landfills in Ghana or deserts in Chile. Fast fashion isn't just a trend. It's a global engine. One powered by exploitation, hidden by influencers, and disguised as empowerment.
Fashion is currently churning out 150 billion items of clothing every single year. They've given us this idea that we're entitled to buy as many new clothes as we want, as frequently as we want.
Racks of clothes we forget a week after wearing. But behind the scenes, there are sweatshops in Los Angeles, crushed workers in Bangladesh, child labor in India, and billion-dollar corporations banking on our silence. It promises affordability because in a culture that worships image, it's easier to admire the outfit than to ask who made it and what it cost them.
You have millions of people that are incentivized to buy stuff they don't really need. The other side, the problem is that production cycles are so short and the pressure is so high that workers are exploited and work absolute inhuman hours.
This is fast fashion. This is the system stitched into our wardrobes. And it's time to pull the thread.
One of the scariest things about Shein is just how addictive it is to spend time on their apps. There's this sort of infinite scroll, and the algorithm and the tech is so clever, it feeds us exactly what we want.
This machine operates on a completely different level.
In 2022, an undercover investigation by Channel 4 and the NGO Public Eye revealed that Shein factory workers in Guangzhou were pulling 17-hour shifts, sewing more than 500 garments a day for less than $20.
There is no magic, right? The only way that you get very cheap product is by not paying workers and flouting any environmental standards.
然后休几天呢？1个月到1个月1天，我1个月1天休息，这是正常的。哦，这里在这里呢，没礼拜天的这个。
Everything we wear was put together by human hands. There are no clothes sewing robots. You cannot put a bunch of fabric into a machine, press a button, and a shirt comes out the other end. It was made by people. It was made by humans sitting at a sewing machine and putting it together. Labor is supposed to be the most expensive part of making something. That when you get it and it's $5, the question should be, who got shortchanged?
Multiple human rights groups have flagged Shein for its refusal to comply with international labor audits, its lack of transparency, and its exploitation of vulnerable workers. Shein denies it all, but their supply chain remains a black box. What Shein does have is influence.
But the biggest part of its online presence has to do with the haul. On TikTok, users post reels that show off what they ordered and what they got. A lot of these posts go viral, creating a marketing campaign that basically runs itself.
I bought $2,000 worth of stuff, and that is my box.
Because in Shein's world, everything is disposable. The clothes, the workers, the outrage. And that's the real cost of going viral. On April 24th, 2013, the Rana Plaza building in Dhaka, Bangladesh, collapsed into rubble. 1,134 lives were lost, over 2,500 injured. It remains the deadliest garment factory disaster in history. Among the debris were labels, tags from Primark, Mango, and Benetton.
Walmart was just one of dozens of companies that had used Rana Plaza. At the time of the collapse, the biggest factory in the building was making clothes for Joe Fresh. Their pink and red pants were found in the rubble, along with the bodies of the workers who made them.
None of the brands owned the factories, but they benefited from them. From the low costs, the fast turnarounds, the system that made it all possible.
There's people dying globally, and our clothes are driving that.
My single largest customer that at the time in Canada accounted for over 50% of our volume told us that to continue doing business, we needed to find a lower cost manufacturing base somewhere else.
And that was Bangladesh.
It turned out to be Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Wages in Bangladesh remain among the lowest in the world, as little as $75 a month. Many garment workers still labor without contracts, safety measures, or time off.
The workers will work for wages that most countries won't because there's no alternative. Working for next to nothing is better than working for nothing.
Rana Plaza wasn't an anomaly. It was an exposure, a brief moment where the machinery of fast fashion cracked wide open, and the world saw, for just a second, what cheap really costs. But then the sales resumed, the hauls returned, the cycle reset. For years, Fashion Nova sold the American dream: body-hugging dresses, Instagram-ready looks, and celebrity-approved style at a fraction of the price. Its rise was meteoric, boosted by stars like Cardi B.
What you can expect from the Fashion Nova collection is expected for you to look rich and affordable.
This outfit right here is like under $60. You know what I'm saying? Get with the swag on a budget, babe.
But in 2019, the illusion cracked. An investigation by the U.S. Department of Labor revealed that Fashion Nova's clothes were being sewn by workers in Los Angeles. Some paid as little as $2.77 an hour.
El fin de semana, cuando cobré mi cheque, un trabajo que me pagaba 15 centavos, pero porque fui a tomar agua, ya nomás me pagó a 12 centavos.
Many of the workers were undocumented immigrants, women who had come to the U.S. looking for safety and opportunity, only to find themselves trapped in a new kind of exploitation.
Estuve trabajando por pieza. Algunas compañías no tienen ni agua. Tenía que llevar yo agua, papel de baño, jabón para lavarme las manos.
The story hit hard because it wasn't happening overseas. It wasn't hidden behind foreign borders or lost in translation. It was happening in California.
The reason there's so much, exploitation and wage theft in this industry is because of a lack of brand accountability. The way the industry works is that brands contract with manufacturers and manufacturers contract with factories. So it's, subcontracting that's really leading to brands being able to wash their hands of the problem.
Because for many consumers, made in the USA still sounds ethical. American soil doesn't stop exploitation. It just makes it easier to ignore. It starts with a soft green label: conscious collection, eco, better cotton, recycled fabric. As if buying from H&M is no longer just affordable, but responsible. But in 2022, a bombshell report by Quartz revealed a disturbing truth: that some conscious collection products used more water and emitted more carbon than their standard counterparts.
Just because you're transparent, it does not mean you're sustainable.
And in several cases, H&M listed completely false sustainability scores. The data had been manipulated or fabricated entirely. This wasn't the first time the brand had been caught. So why does it keep working? Because H&M has mastered something few brands have: greenwashing at scale.
You can't say that you're committed to solving a problem when you're the person creating the problem. They're producing and making these clothes and then trying to offer some small solution to a much bigger problem that they're creating. It's greenwashing, making people think it's okay to buy this rubbish when it's not.
They know that consumers want to feel good about what they buy. They also know that most won't read the fine print. Gigi Hadid in a recycled plastic dress, Naomi Campbell in climate-conscious couture, glossy ads filled with wildflowers and melting glaciers. It's all part of the performance, where sustainability is a vibe, not a verified reality. But the facts are harder to soften. Every year, H&M burns or discards tons of unsold clothing, despite claiming to be circular. In 2017, it was revealed that the brand incinerated over 60 tons of new, unworn garments. Meanwhile, Its recycling bins, placed in stores around the world, collected only a fraction of what the company produced. Most of those clothes shipped to developing countries where they end up clogging rivers and choking landfills. H&M isn't alone. Zara, Uniqlo, Bershka, and dozens more run the same playbook. Because the truth is simple. The most sustainable outfit is the one you didn't buy. But no brand wants to say that.
In 2020, the world was still in lockdown, but Boohoo was booming. The UK-based brand had become a powerhouse of online fashion. Ultra-short skirts, 6-pound crop tops, next-day delivery, and celebrity collabs that lit up Instagram. Megan Fox, Kourtney Kardashian, and Zendaya had all been tied to the brand or its subsidiaries. Boohoo was young, trendy, and most importantly, fast. But then, a quiet investigation by the Sunday Times pulled back the curtain.
We've seen outbreaks in food factories and in clothing factories. There's some quite significant concerns about some of the employment practices in some of the clothing factories in Leicester.
I was getting paid back. And then for me, it was like I'm working for free. I'm taking this big risk.
And was it safe?
Right. Not at all. It was as normal as before the war. No gloves, no mask, no social distance, anything at all.
Many workers had no contracts, no benefits, and no protections. Some were undocumented immigrants terrified to speak up. Others said they were threatened with losing their jobs if they complained. The public outrage was instant. But Boohoo didn't fold. They rebranded. They launched an agenda for change, hired an independent auditor, promised to do better. A few months later, the headlines faded. The celebrity endorsements returned. Kourtney Kardashian signed a sustainable collaboration deal. The company's profits soared again. The UK Parliament later found that Boohoo knew about the wage violations as early as 2017, but failed to act. The brand denied wrongdoing, blamed rogue suppliers, and kept growing. Because Boohoo doesn't just sell clothes, it sells speed. It's why some factories were told to cut corners, why some workers were paid under the table. And for consumers, made in the UK still sounds better than made in Bangladesh. But geography is not a guarantee of ethics. The abuse didn't happen far away. It happened at home, and most people missed it because the price was right.
Fast fashion doesn't just come in plastic packaging anymore. It now arrives wrapped in luxury branding, sculpted marketing, and celebrity faces. Enter Skims, the billion-dollar shapewear empire founded by Kim Kardashian. Launched in 2019, it was pitched as empowering, inclusive, and ethically conscious. The brand offered neutral tones for every body type, promised comfort and control, and claimed to be redefining bodywear for the modern woman.
Celebrity fast fashion collaborations are nothing new, but this one feels so much worse. Nike is teaming up with none other than Kim Kardashian's $4 billion shapewear brand Skims to create Nike Skims. Despite what their marketing team's telling you, this collaboration is not going to empower women, it's just going to accelerate fashion's contribution to climate breakdown. It's also totally going against Nike's own sustainability commitments. And it's going to end up in landfill, so.
In 2021, reports surfaced that Skims was manufacturing garments in factories located in Fujian, China, a region linked by human rights groups to unsafe working conditions and allegations of forced labor. And Skims isn't alone. Most celebrity-owned fashion brands operate within the same fast fashion infrastructure. Whether it's Beyoncé's Ivy Park or Khloe Kardashian's Good American, the business model doesn't change. Garments may be premium priced, but they're often made in the same countries, the same zones, and under similar conditions as the cheapest competitors. What changes is the story, the branding, the language, the aesthetic.
It's the image no brand wants you to see. A child crouched on the floor of a garment factory, threading beads through fabric with aching fingers. No school, no break, no play, just work. It doesn't fit the brand aesthetic. It won't appear in any Instagram campaign, but it's real, and it's still happening.
Fashion brands are still using child labor. And the scale of this problem is
is horrifying. Over 160 million kids are sacrificing their health, their education in the production of tempting sweaters for consumers like you and me. As you can see, developing countries produce a vast majority of cotton, and fashion brands take advantage of this. It's a no-brainer. Why?
Well, probably because the labor and the raw materials are much cheaper there.
Exactly. And what makes it so cheap? Very often, illegal child labor. In India alone, the majority of children workers ranges from 20 to 120 million children.
These clothes often land on the shelves of major Western retailers. The girls are paid a few rupees per piece, if they're paid at all. In Myanmar, reports from Human Rights Watch found children working 12-hour shifts for less than $1.50 a day in factories supplying some of the world's biggest fast fashion brands. Western brands deny involvement. They point to corporate codes of conduct, factory audits, and ethical sourcing guidelines. In 2007, Gap Inc. was exposed for using a supplier in India that employed child laborers. In 2016, Nike came under fire for sourcing from a Cambodian factory where underage girls were working long, grueling shifts. These scandals made headlines. The brands released statements. They promised to do better, but the cycle didn't end. It just got quieter. Because in a $2.5 trillion global industry built on speed and cost cutting, children remain the cheapest resource of all.
We're constantly bombarded with media that puts pressure on us to buy newer and trendier clothes, just to throw them away when they're no longer in style. An estimated 93 million tons go to landfill or are burned every year.
And that's roughly about a garbage truckload of textiles every second going to landfill. Every second.
In Ghana's Kantamanto market, one of the largest secondhand clothing hubs in the world, up to 40% of what arrives is unsellable and dumped almost immediately. These garments pile into informal landfills, leak dyes into waterways, and form tangled mats of fabric along the coastline. In Chile, the Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth, has become a graveyard for unsold fashion. Over 39,000 tons of clothing arrive every year, mostly from the US, China, and Europe. This is the part of fashion no one photographs. No influencers, no red carpets, just scorched earth, poison rivers, and entire ecosystems drowning in discarded trends. What's worse? Most of this waste is new. A 2023 report from Earth.org found that up to 30% of fast fashion inventory is never sold. In the US, major retailers like Amazon, Nike, and Burberry have all faced backlash for discarding or incinerating unsold goods. Not because they were defective, but because resale hurt the brand image. Fast fashion doesn't just exploit labor, it devours resources, then vomits waste onto the poorest regions of the world. And it tells consumers it's their fault, that the problem is overconsumption, that the solution is to donate more. But donations don't slow production. And recycling, less than 1% of all textiles globally are actually turned into new clothes.
The push we've seen in recent years towards more sustainable and ethical fashion, and how being a more ethical consumer of clothing may not be as black and white as it seems.
Thrift hauls, eco-friendly brands, slow fashion pledges, conscious capsules. Social media influencers trade Shein links for secondhand finds. But the truth is more complicated. Take sustainable brands. Many still produce in the global south, still rely on underpaid labor, and still overproduce. Even thrifting, once a subversive act, has become industrialized. Fast fashion brands themselves have launched resale platforms to appear ethical, but no amount of boycotting Shein will stop Shein if millions of others are still feeding the algorithm.
I, for one, have been trying for a few years to be a more conscious, ethical consumer in all areas, but definitely in buying clothing. And it's honestly a little bit frustrating to try and figure out how to do that. It feels like one of those areas where you can't really win, so you have to choose the option that does the least harm, but then it can actually be kind of difficult to see what that even is. And I think in the past few years, people have definitely started to realize how bad fast fashion is. People are encouraging each other to stop buying clothes from fast fashion brands like H&M, Shein, Forever 21. I think it's great to avoid fast fashion and just not support that industry if you realistically can. But I also think it's a little uncool to shame people for buying from fast fashion stores, because many people are doing that out of necessity because that's what they can afford. It's a privilege to be in a financial position where you can afford to spend a little bit more on clothing in order to buy from stores that source and produce their clothing ethically.
Fast fashion sells us the dream of individuality, but it traps millions in identical cycles of invisibility. It uses celebrities to glamorize labor systems they'll never have to touch.
Okay, whoever said loungewear was only for the house hasn't tried Skims.
It wraps exploitation in pastel packaging and calls it progress. It leaves behind mountains of waste and calls it culture. And still, we applaud. Still, we post. Still, we buy. So before we click buy now, maybe we pause.
It's simple. Buy less, wear longer. We shouldn't encourage these crazily short production cycles that try to feed us with trendy clothes every single week. Spreading awareness of this problem is a small step everyone can take.
Because the next time we look in the mirror, we won't just see a reflection. We'll see a system, one we've worn without realizing, one we've carried without questioning, and one we can begin to change if we finally choose to see it. This is humanity.